Oh my god. I think I'm lost. So, I'm in the woods looking for this witch in this book of shadows, and I literally just walked outside of my backyard for like 10 seconds, and I already don't know where I'm at. The leaves are wet. It smells like pee. It is my pants. I have a... I hope I can make it home. Oh, wait a minute. There it is.
So I made it back, and it actually wasn't as hard as I thought it would be. I was out, in the woods looking for the whole Book of Shadows. I don't even know what it is, to be honest with you, but I thought that was going to be my ticket to fame, fortune, and get me out of this personal hell I've created. But instead, I'm here to talk about a terrible sequel to a movie that many people say was terrible in the first place and didn't warrant a sequel. I have mixed feelings about the original Blair Witch Project. It came out at a time where I was just like I was engulfed in horror. I was 11 years old, and I remember seeing that movie as a double feature in a drive-in, with Austin Powers being the first movie and then the Blair Witch Project being the second. And I thought it was great. It was groundbreaking. Everyone who saw it said it was great, and it was like nothing they've ever seen. And of course, that formula has been recreated since with the whole found footage genre. And there was movies that had some found footage elements to it before, but this was, as far as I know, the first major motion picture that was released around the world that was 100% found footage. Literally filmed on something like this. I mean, a little bit nicer, a little bit fancier, but basically, like a Super 8, high 8 millimeter handy cam almost. By the way, this thing still works and I still use it. I love this thing. But after its success, people wondered, what can they do for a sequel? And I will be getting into this at the end of the video, but it's very simple. But like I said, before we get there, let's just go over the movie, or at least the parts of the movie that I have my gripe with. It's actually gripes, because there's a lot of them. So, this movie takes place in a universe where the Blair Witch Project was an actual movie that was released. Just like in our universe, it was the found footage of these three teenagers who go in the woods, and obviously, their footage was found and it was put together, made into a movie. But in our universe, where it was clearly fake in the Book of Shadows universe, that all actually happened. So, in the movie universe, three teens actually went missing in the woods. The footage, the evidence, was found, put together, and released around the world. Okay, whatever. That would never happen in a million years. But then we get the sequel, which is also inspired by true events, but is being reenacted by actors. So, The Book of Shadows is a movie based off of true events. So basically, The Book of Shadows starts off by telling you this is a movie. These are actors. None of this is real, but it actually did happen. Fuck you. You think I'm stupid? Of course it didn't happen. Do I kind of wish it did? Yeah, I do. Now, although it is realistic that in the real world, people would try to capitalize off of this massive hit of a movie. It takes place in the country of Maryland. So obviously, you would have tourists who travel to those areas and want to see the spots where, that they saw in the movies. So then, of course, you would have tour guides and companies trying to capitalize on that situation. That's a given. I mean, in real life, there's like the murder tours of LA where, they go on tour through Los Angeles and they show famous crime scene like, "Oh, this is where OJ didn't kill his wife." So like I believe that, but this group of people is basically consisting of every horror trope available. Literally, all they're missing is a dog, and this would be an episode of Scooby Doo. Jeff is the main character, and he's the one who's running this ragtag tour group, getting the people together and taking them to the actual woods and the sites that they saw in the movie. He's accompanied by a couple who is in the middle of writing a book about the entire situation, and they're also expecting a baby. Then you have Miss Essential Oil, who says that she's a real life witch or a Wiccan. And finally, you have an outcast from the movie The Craft, a much better movie about witches. So the scares from this movie, they don't come from things that are actually scary, but they would have been scary if they were in a found footage film. A lot of the scares come from quick jump cuts, which is a very cheap way of getting scares. Um, but if you're watching a found footage film and a tree pops up out of nowhere and there wasn't a tree there before, you could kind of see, the suspense and like the unease. But when you're watching a major motion picture and there's a tree where there wasn't a tree before, it's just like, oh, like I'm legit. I'm actually supposed to be afraid of a tree that wasn't there before and it's there now. Not since my first viewing of The Exorcist have been I so terrified from a scene from a movie. It's a fucking tree. So after their first night of camping out, where they spend the entire night listening to late 90s metal and rock and roll and smoking the devil's lettuce and drinking like it's the end of the world, they wake up the next day to find their campsite is a complete mess. And there's pages of the book ripped up all over the place. And Jeff is kind of implying that they were maybe possibly drugged because nobody remembers anything and they just blacked out. Not like you didn't just spend the entire night drinking your ass off and smoking weed. Like, you've never blacked out? I've been drunk and high plenty of times before. There's many nights I don't remember. And if I woke up after a night of drinking and smoking and doing all sorts of drugs, and I woke up and my campsite was fucked up, my first thought would be, man, how fucked up were we last night? Not, oh, well, we must have been drugged or something. What are you, stupid? So we then learn a little bit about the original Blair Witch, Ellie Kedworth. Um, but do we learn from a flashback or maybe some sort of 80s montage? No. No, we learn about Ellie Kedworth from a dream sequence that doesn't even show up on film. We literally have two characters talking about the history because they dreamt it. You couldn't do anything better. You couldn't give us a visual representation, or possibly, like, just like I said, like a montage. Just, like, the girl wakes up and she's explaining her dream, and as she's explaining her dream, you just cut to a little bit of scene of this. I mean, like, it's literally like filming 101. It's lazy. Oh. So they find out randomly that if they play their footage backwards, they now have the missing footage of what actually happened that night when they were camping. And through the reverse footage, they see that, some people are naked, they're dancing around the fire, and they're screaming and yelling, almost like, now hear me out, they were high and drunk. I am shocked. I, in a million years, would have never guessed that a group of people who smoke and drink all night actually did stupid shit. So then in the film, the lady who was pregnant, I say was because in the middle of this film she had a miscarriage, but still ended up back with the group. Whatever. She starts acting like a bitch. Start, smacking people around a little bit, getting a little mouthy, a little, you know what I mean? And I'm actually not gonna say what happens to her. If you watch the movie, you can check it out for yourself if you want to waste your time. I'm not getting into it. But yeah, she is no longer around. So it is then found out that the events from that night that they remember, like when, the goth girl went to the store and was treated rudely, and then like, everything that they actually remember didn't happen the way they remembered. And they're shown footage from the cameras and security cameras from the store that they were the aggressors. They were the ones responsible for the deaths of the other group that was doing the tour, and the people at the store, the goth girl. You know what I mean? Almost as if they were under some kind of substance. Like, maybe they remember things a certain way, compared to how they actually happened, because they were drunk and high. But no, the movie will have you believe that the reason that they don't remember how things actually happened is because this witch was able to possess them, change their memories, and have them do all this horrible shit. And then they get caught for it, and they have all the footage of what really happened. Um, are you fucking kidding me? Like, it's like, I don't want to give the movie this much credit, but like, it's kind of ambiguous, where it's like, were they possessed by the witch and the witch made them do all this? Or were they drunk and high? Because we clearly see them drinking and smoking while camping out. Who the fuck knows what they did? And then, lastly, before I get into my little synopsis breakdown, whatever you want to call it, what was the Book of Shadows? Like, was it the book that got tore up in the woods that the couple was working on? What was it? I don't think it makes an appearance in the movie. If it did, I didn't see it. See, these are the reasons I hate this movie. But like I said earlier, the main reason I hate this movie is very simple. This movie should have been a slam dunk. This series should have been a franchise. Paranormal Activity has proven that you can literally put out the same movie of found footage year after year after year, and it will make millions of dollars. Not just that, but movies in general have repeated the same formula. The Purge, Saw, all these movies just keep doing the same thing and they make millions of dollars. And it's not like a new thing, because how many sequels to our favorite 80s slashers have we seen where it's the same scenario of, you know, teens go here, teens go there, they get killed and one survives. I mean, it's not hard. You could have literally had a group of friends go out and look for the original three people from the first movie who disappeared. You could have had another group of friends, 3, 5, 7, I don't give a shit. And they could have all had their own cameras, and they could have went in the same woods, and they could have experienced spooky stuff and things like that. And that movie would have made just as much money, if not more money, than the first. But when people saw the trailer for Book of Shadows and realized it was like a big Hollywood film and not like the original, people didn't go see it. Whether you like the first one or you don't, it was groundbreaking and it did very well. And they could have rode that horse into the sunset. You know, Blair Witch, Project Part 8, Blair Witch 9, same woods. And that's the thing, these movies would have been so cheap to produce. It's literally a machine that prints money. Instead, we get the Book of Shadows. And until recently, the franchise was dead. I don't know if the new one's a remake or a reboot. I'm afraid to watch it because of Book of Shadows. I've been burned before. One day, I will learn to trust again. But until then, I'll stick with my 70s and 80s horror and slasher films. Call them predictable, call them cheesy, but you know exactly what you're getting when you watch those movies. I am Gray. These were my gripes with Blair Witch 2, Season of the Book of Shadows. Fuck it. I'm gonna go out and find that fucking witch myself. Or I'm gonna make a sex tape at night vision with Paris Hilton. You know, this camera's like over 20 years old and it actually has decent night vision. Something my new camera doesn't have. Fucking weird, man. It's odd. Alright, I gotta go.